We talking rom-com, we talking action, we talking drama and movie classics. Whatever you want, yo, we have it, 'cause we talking movies on the podcast. So I married a film critic. So I married a film critic. So I married a film critic. Hey honey, I just want to talk about the movie like casually. You don't have to bring up the cinematography. Honestly, let's just talk about like how the characters were fun. Married a film critic. So I married a film critic.
Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic. I'm your co-host Julia.
And I'm Barry the Film Critic. How you doing, everyone?
So today we decided to show our 5-year-old a movie that Barry and I both grew up with, Flight of the Navigator from 1986.
David, what time did you enter the woods?
Around 8 o'clock.
Then what happened?
Then I reached this cliff.
It's transmitting in alpha waves with complex frequency patterns in them.
I know I fell.
It's 1986, man. 8 years since that night. This is totally rad. I mean, you're my big little brother.
I think you should take a look at this. Where did this come from? From the mind of a 12-year-old boy?
He's hurt. He's calling me. His voice keeps calling, saying something over and over and over. But I can't understand very much. Help you. How?
Sit down, Navigator. You have the information I require to complete my mission. I have been sent from Phelan to borrow samples of life from different galaxies for study. On this planet, I chose you.
Why me?
Why not? Dude.
This is a special one for you because I know you said you used to watch it a lot all the time, which is cool because I think that's how a lot of people discovered it. I was just telling you before we started, I mean, this movie did not play in theaters. And I don't mean that literally. I mean, it totally tanked. And let me explain why really quick, because I'm sure most listening to this going, oh, Flight of the Navigator, that movie's awesome. Yeah, well, it opened up against Top Gun, Ferris Bueller, The Fly, Aliens, The Karate Kid Part 2, and Crocodile Dundee. There was no room for this movie.
Oh, dang.
It was an amazing summer. It was, and I remember that summer well. But yeah, and Big Trouble in Little China, a lot of great movies. But yeah, I mean, this movie didn't have star power. This is back when Disney was like, what is this company? This is right before the resurgence of Little Mermaid and Roger Rabbit. So, you know, a live action Disney sci-fi movie that was rated PG, starring no one you've heard of, didn't really pull anybody in. The trailer they used to show all the time on the Disney Channel. I remember watching the trailer and thinking that looked awesome. And then, like yourself, when it came on video cassette, I just devoured this. I've never met anyone who doesn't love this movie, but yeah, this thing did not play in theaters.
Well, when I was a kid, we had these friends. My parents had these friends, and so there were 5 kids total, me and my brother and sister, and then they had a boy and a girl. And this was the only movie we could all agree on. Literally the only one. Because it wasn't too girly and it wasn't like, it was still fun. But whenever we got together with this family, this was the choice.
That's funny too, because watching it with you the other day, I mean, I hadn't seen it in a few years. I mean, like yourself, I'm a little overly familiar with it, but watching it with our 5-year-old daughter, I'm going, ooh, this isn't the most appropriate film. There's some things they say in this movie I don't want my daughter picking up.
This movie has now officially been canceled.
Well, I don't know about canceled, but I mean, there's all sorts of inappropriate slurs that unfortunately were said a lot in the 80s that should not be in a PG-rated Disney film. Or, I mean, they should have just rethought that altogether. They should have dubbed that out of the movie.
Well, the only thing our daughter cares about is flying on a spacecraft with Max the alien. So she did not pick up that other stuff.
Yeah, and we should definitely get into the plot, which I think was lost not only in her, but as you and I both admit, it was kind of lost on us when we were kids too.
Honestly, watching it with her, I thought, oh, that's why David is on this spacecraft. I had no idea. I've seen this movie over a dozen times.
Well, let's get into it. Yeah, because it is convoluted, and I do think it does pose a problem. So let's talk about what this is about.
Okay, so this movie is about a 12-year-old named David.
Who we should say, he's 12 years old in 1978. That's important.
12 years old in 1978, and it opens up in the car with his family, and him and his little brother are, nattering at each other. And the brother gets out of the car and goes off to play with his friends. So when David goes home, it's 4th of July. And the parents are like, go get your brother. He can't walk alone in the woods. And he's like, I don't want to get my brother. But he does anyway. So he takes his dog and they walk across the train track. They go into I don't know where they are. It's like this neighborhood has a forest in it. He's hearing things. The dog is kind of freaking out. And then he falls down this ravine, wakes up. And when he goes back home, his parents are gone. Somebody else lives in the house and he doesn't know why. And then we discover that it's 8 years later and David is still 12. And now we have to figure out the mystery. Where was he for 8 years?
Yeah, very good. Good recap. Watching it the other day, I don't think the movie completely plays fair with it. In fact, I think the movie probably presents the idea that it's a dream sequence because the way it's presented, he falls down the ravine. And then it cuts. It's like the same moment, but cut at a different angle. And he still has dirt and stuff all over him from falling down the ravine. Then he gets up, brushes himself off, and runs away. And what we learn, of course, was that he had been in the ravine, retrieved by supernatural means, and then returned to that very spot
8 years later.
8 years later. So it doesn't make a lot of sense that the alien movies are very specific, especially movies that came up subsequently, like Communion and Fire in the Sky, where someone's abducted and you get a sense of what's you could tell physically they've changed or whatever. In this case, it's interesting that David looks exactly. He's still a little boy, but it looked there's no sense of the abduction. I don't know. I don't think the movie plays completely fair with the concept. It doesn't give us any indication. And maybe the aliens are that good. Maybe it's just that good that we're not supposed to see.
Max is that good.
I don't know. And then you bring up the really good point overall because we learned that he was abducted by aliens. Why?
Why?
8 years with this kid. And they're
what are they studying?
A child. Yeah. What are they going to learn from a little boy who likes Pac-Man? No, this is before Pac-Man. This is a boy who loves Pong and Donnie and Marie and chips. What are they going to learn from this kid?
Yeah. You know what? We should back up to the opening scene.
Thank you. I was hoping you'd start there.
Yeah. Because this scene always cracks us up.
It's one of the greatest openings in cinematic history, ladies and gentlemen. And my theory as to how it happened was, I think the screenwriter was just in a park one day. He's like, man, I got this great idea. I just don't know how to start my movie. Then, ladies and gentlemen, the 1978 World Frisbee Dog Tournament. Because that's what the movie opens up with this montage of dogs catching Frisbees in their mouth in slow motion. And it's about a 2.5, 3 minute sequence. And it's glorious.
Yeah. Well, because the Frisbee looks like a UFO.
Yeah. Which is great.
Yeah, which is great. And then there's another moment where a blimp kind of covers the sun and you're like, what is it? Oh, it's a blimp. It's not a UFO.
And later on, David sees a water tower. We think it's a UFO. Yeah, it's these really great visual, foreshadowing what's to come. But back to that opening, ladies and gentlemen. Fan-freaking-tastic way, because this is a live-action, sci-fi PG-rated Disney film. What a better way to pull the kids in than to have a montage of dogs flying through the air, their little legs flying, their fur getting ruffled in the wind, tongues hanging out, catching these Frisbees, and then roaring back down to earth. Oh man, I could watch. This is pure cinema. I could watch this opening on a loop for a day. I love it.
And you love the music.
Yeah, it's Alan Silvestri. This is the guy who composed the music to Back to the Future. He's no slouch, and this score was done entirely on a synclavier keyboard on a synthesizer. So this is a synthesizer only score, and it's
Very
one of the
80s.
Yeah, but it freaking works. It's a really exciting score. I love the music to this movie, and I think it's funny because Back to the Future is dun, 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 it's so orchestral, and this is the complete opposite.
How does it go, babe?
Back to the Future?
No, this one. That's good. That's good. Okay. Oh man. Okay, so yes, our daughter loved that opening, and then we get to the.
I figured if nothing else, she'll like the opening. We'll have to watch the opening again. But no, she actually liked the movie, which is cool. But let's get back to the story. So
okay, so David goes. A nice couple calls the cops, and
the couple that's living in his house now, which is a very eerie scene.
It is really weird.
Yeah.
And they find, a missing person.
Yeah.
From 1978, and they're like, look at the date, and he's like, maybe it's a typo, So they take David to his family's current house, which is still in Fort Lauderdale, and he sees his parents, and I gotta say, they make his parents look terrible 8 years later.
Yeah, and I gotta say that I found that really haunting. Actually, I mean, the years have been hell for them.
Yeah,
losing even though they didn't leave Florida and they still have a house by the water, whatever. But they moved down the street. That's how they've coped. But no, in all seriousness, like it's Cliff D. Young, who's a character actor, and Veronica Cartwright, who most people know from Alien and The Witches of Eastwick. Both are terrific character actors, and. It being grown up now, this scene really bothers me because you could see they're losing their kid has shattered this couple.
Yeah.
And the makeup is subtle, but as you said, they're good looking, a good looking 80s, couple.
Yeah,
so
8 years earlier when we see them, they're in their 80s clothes.
Yeah, and they got their
nice
80s hair. Yeah, they're very frilly 80s hair.
The mom's all made up. I mean, you see them, and I mean, the dad looks like
they look terrible.
He's got gray makeup on or something.
Yeah.
The life has been sucked out of them. It's really sad.
It is the middle of the night, but I mean, were they just going to sleep, or
I don't know, but
this is just how they look.
They look bad.
And I mean, that's the point the movie's trying to convey too, and it completely works. And it gets creepier too. I mean, you see, David has a little brother who's now his older brother, very well played by Matt Adler, who would later become the star of North Shore. I like this whole dynamic. This part of the movie, I think, really, really works.
Yeah, the brothers they could have done more with that, but his brother's not in it very long.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, it's not really their movie, but I think they do what they can to make all the side characters work. But yeah, this part of the movie, I mean, it reminds me of the 80s, the new Twilight Zone series. I think it, even it's something like Amazing Stories. Again, to use that word eerie, it's very creepy. And I think, it's light sci-fi, but I think it's still really good and intriguing sci-fi. I like the first act of this movie a lot.
So they take David to a hospital, and they're trying to figure out where has he been, what happened to him, and his brain just sort of they have him hooked up to electrodes, and his brain just spits out a picture of the spacecraft.
Yeah, this is after he's agreed to go to the institute. No,
right? Before.
This is before that?
Okay. Yeah, because they find, then, there's a scene of NASA finding this spacecraft, and then...
and NASA is led, pardon me, I'm sorry to interrupt. NASA is led by Howard Hessman, the former star of Head of the Class, is playing this, he's not really a villain. Oddly enough, he's more like Keyes from E.T. He's kind of like this corporate guy who's trying to
help.
He's actually not a bad guy altogether, even though he's just doing his job. But yeah, very much like Keyes. And they even make an E.T. reference later in the movie, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So he gets in touch with that guy because of this, image that a computer prints out. And they're like, where's that from? David's brain, And so what's his face? NASA guy.
Howard Hessman.
Yeah. He talks to the family, and he's like, I just need 2 days. Let's find out where you were. The family's like, no, we don't want him to be an experiment. But he finally agrees, okay, it's only 48 hours. I'll go to NASA and you can run these tests. So they take him, and he's locked in a room with all these toys. He's like, wow, is all this stuff for me? And and that's when we meet Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah, this is Square Pegs era Sarah Jessica Parker, straight off the set of Girls Just Want to Have Fun, the movie. Sarah Jessica Parker. Yeah, adorable.
And she's an intern at NASA delivering meals.
Part of me have left to lose.
Get away! Hi, I'm Carolyn McAdams. You gotta be real hungry after your trip, right? What is this thing? That's Ralph. Ralph? Mm-hmm. Robotic assistant labor facilitator. Actually, what he does here is he delivers mail and supplies, and he messes up a little bit every now and then. So, who did you murder to get put here in maximum security?
No one. I'm a national security secret.
Oh, well, in that case, I shouldn't be talking to you at all.
Wait a sec. How come Starsky and Hutch isn't on?
That show was canceled a long time ago.
That was my favorite show. What's this stuff?
You've never seen a music video before?
I've been gone for 8 years.
Gone where? Outer space?
Could be.
Yeah, for the character doesn't make any sense. And two, I think she's in this movie because I think they're like, we got to have a teen appeal. We got to have something to appeal to teens because this is either like old people or young people. We got nothing in between. So I think Sarah Jessica Parker, I think her character was concocted just to like get the MTV, you know. Not only that, I mean, they literally introduce MTV.
They do, because he doesn't know what a music video is, you know, and he's been gone so long. Oh no, he doesn't know what a music video is.
What a radical concept.
But Sarah Jessica Parker's character rolls in with this robot named Ralph.
Because Rocky IV came out the prior year, so like robots in American movies is the thing. This is the same summer, by the way, as Short Circuit, so like we were robot crazy at this time.
Yeah, so Ralph delivers one tray of food. It's like Sarah Jessica Parker can't carry one tray of food to one person.
Sweetie, it's NASA. It's all high tech over there.
I guess.
And she's been hired to keep an eye on this robot so that it doesn't, you know, like the Terminator, just start killing people or go rogue.
Yeah. So, anyways, they start running tests on David, and the guy asked him questions, and David's like, I don't know. He's real belligerent.
And his brain is answering the questions.
Yeah, his brain is answering the questions. And so we find out that he's been on Phalon, this mythical planet that's not even in our solar system. And his brain is full of star charts. And they're charts that apparently of galaxies that NASA doesn't even know about yet.
Yeah.
So that's a mystery. Why does he have all these star charts in his brain? And they figure out that he could have been gone from Earth for 4 hours, but because he was traveling past the speed of light, it was 8 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's the science, I guess, for you.
Yeah, I guess. I don't think Neil deGrasse Tyson would. I don't think this movie really holds up, but anyway.
Yeah. So David's getting sick of being there, and he's like, oh man, I'm so glad I get to go home tomorrow. And Sarah Jessica Parker is dropping off another meal, and she's like, they told you you're leaving tomorrow? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I don't know if I can tell you. Tell me. You're on the meal schedule for the next week.
Yeah, she cracks really
easily.
She's not a good NASA employee.
She's not.
She's terrible.
So he's like, you got to help me. Like, you got to get in touch with my parents. You got to tell them what's going on, because all of his phone calls are monitored. And so I don't know what does he take a nap and then the alien is like talking to him in his mind?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he wakes up and it's just like garbly goop talking to him.
Right.
And then Ralph comes and
the Skynet robot comes
and the alien
gets
says,
him out of
get
there.
inside of Ralph. And yeah, the guys and the security, NASA security is terrible in this film. They don't know what they're doing. And so he takes Ralph, and Ralph takes him to the spaceship.
Yeah, this was a rough year for NASA in the cinema because the other film that came out this year that was had NASA involvement was Space Camp, which is an infamous film because it came out not long after the Challenger disaster. So this is not a good look for NASA that they've got the world's worst security.
NASA look like
morons,
idiots.
total morons. And, and by the way, they hire this girl who's been hired, Sarah Jessica Parker, to keep an eye on a kid who was abducted by aliens and has been missing.
No,
for...
she's not hired to keep
All right,
like,
but
keep track of him.
she communicates with him. She's clearly been told like, okay, you could talk to the kid and you got to feed the kid and got to keep an eye on him and just like, make sure he's okay. I mean, like she's been given a big responsibility to be with this kid who's like.
I think you're projecting more than. I think all she's really supposed to do is deliver his meals.
But no, it's more than that. She's not like a janitor or anything. I mean, she's not a nurse. Okay, I agree. Yeah, she's not a nurse. She's not a janitor. She's something in between, though. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility to this job, and she's treating it like she's working at the Dairy Queen. Like this is the wrong person for this job. I mean, they should get someone who like. Okay, like this kid has been abducted by aliens, so like make no sudden moves around him. Don't show him MTV. We don't know if this kid has antennae or telekinesis or whatever. No, she's just like, oh my God, like you haven't seen an MTV video? I'll show you.
Have you ever heard of Twisted Sister?
Oh my God.
It's amazing.
You would love Twisted Sister. Yeah. This is like the wrong person to be like an ambassador to a kid who might be an alien. We don't know. Like clearly NASA is not taking this kid all that seriously until it's too late.
Well, so they do have a really uncomfortable moment
when
David is telling her like, you have to help me, and she looks at him and just kind of gives him a wink, and then she's leaving the room and she's like, you're kind of cute. And I'm like, how old is she? It's so weird.
I wonder if the screenwriter was like, this movie needs a love story, but we don't have really time for it, so I'm just going to squeeze that in there.
Yeah.
And I thought they were going to make it that she was the girl that he had a crush on earlier in the film. It's not, but
that would have been better.
That would have made sense. Yeah, that would have made some kind of sense that she grew up to be, because it's established early in the film that David
has a crush, and he
crushing
doesn't know
a girl.
how to talk to girls.
He's watching this girl through his telescope like a creeper, and his dad's like, way to go, son. But then, it would have made a lot of sense if she was that girl, obviously, because then she could have been like, hey, I had a thing for you when you were still looking exactly the way you do now. So that moment would have made sense.
That would have made
Instead,
sense.
it's Sarah Jessica Parker, who, lovely, clearly too old for this kid by a decade, being flirtatious.
She's obviously in her early 20s in this movie, and he's 12.
Yeah, it's, and this isn't a thing like, oh, it was the 80s. No, this was not appropriate in the 80s. As someone who lived in the 80s, no, we didn't think this was cool back then.
Yeah, it was bad. But anyways, but it's funny because his dad, back when he was, before he was abducted, he's like, Dad, I don't know how to talk to girls. And his dad's like, well, you just have to try. Like, hey, how's it going? Nice bike.
Which is super creepy to hear a grown man say, by the way.
Anyways, okay, so David gets out of Ralph and he sees the spaceship. And this is when the spaceship opens up for the first time.
Yeah.
We see that it has like magical stairs, and he climbs in because he's like, are you the one who's been talking to me? And the spaceship is like, yes. So
there's this ominous voice, has this eyeball that can extend throughout the ship.
Yeah. So he climbs in, and then the amazing security guards are like, oh my gosh, it's open.
It's been open for like an hour. We haven't even noticed. Yeah. Morons.
I've just been reading my book, because nothing ever happens around here.
Yeah.
So then the spaceship, there's a sequence where they're trying to get him out. They can't get him out. They decide he's like, get us out of here. Take us 20 miles away.
And this is, by the way, where the profanity really takes off. Most of it's Howard Hessman. He's just walking in, like forgetting that he's in a Disney movie, just lets the profanities fly. And, it's nothing of like the F word caliber, but still, like, the movie waited till this moment to suddenly like let the profanity slip. And it's a mistake.
Yeah. So the spaceship just takes David up into space, and he's like, I didn't mean, 20 miles up, So he's trying to like figure out what to do, because he obviously doesn't want to stay at NASA and be a
specimen.
Yeah, specimen.
But also, the alien that's piloting the ship is belligerent. So initially, it's like a bratty brother relationship between David and Maximilian.
And Max, yeah, because he's like, compliance, you're the navigator. And David's like, what the heck are you talking about? So yeah, he doesn't explain anything to him, which is probably an annoying trait of aliens. I don't know.
But in any case, he learns to pilot the ship very quickly. He's a quick study.
Yep.
And this is the
Well,
part
he was falling to his death, to be fair.
This
That's
is true,
how
yeah.
he learned.
Learned
Yeah.
under pressure.
Yeah.
And this is the part of the movie that everyone knows and loves and remembers well. I mean, and as a kid, for me, this is where the movie started.
Yeah, this is the whole thing. You know, David flying around space, going in the ocean. Basically, he goes around the world.
He does, yeah. I mean, they've been threatening to remake this movie for a long time. They haven't yet, although they always announce every couple of years that they're going to remake this. I suspect when they get around to remaking it, because they will, they'll probably get to this part of the story a lot quicker. Because the beginning of the film, even though I like it a lot, I think it's actually much stronger than the second act of the movie. It does take a long time to really get to what this movie is, because it is about this kid who learns to fly the spaceship, learns to, master alien technology. And,
befriends an alien.
yeah, just like have this incredible experience that his earthbound life did not provide him. So yeah, it takes a while to get to that. And I don't think it's to the movie's detriment. I think the movie is really good because I think, thank goodness, it has that first act, which is really well constructed, because this second act leading into the third act, it's a lot of fun. At times it's really exhilarating, but it's silly. It's a children's film. This is where it becomes not like the brainiest of sci-fi movies. In fact, it has all sorts of, it plays really fast and loose with the science.
Yeah, so what I never really, maybe I just didn't care about why David was abducted.
Yeah.
But apparently this Max character is going around galaxies and taking specimens and then taking them back to his planet, and they're studying them, and then they take them back in time to the point of origin like they never left.
It's a lot of trouble. I mean, if this movie was grittier, they would just admit that they take them from their planets and then they kill them when they're done. Like the whole thing of like having to bring them back and use time travel, it's a lot of...
Yeah, because when you see the other specimens, you're like, they're not going to know they were gone for any period of time.
This is like the equivalent of a mosquito on another planet. But that's just, I mean, I'm just assuming, for all I know, like these little slugs or like the little Puck Martin and all those, the other characters... I mean, they seem, but maybe I'm just thinking about this in really small ways. A human, maybe there is a planet of these, disgusting, bizarre creatures.
Their brains are more powerful than ours, and they do remember, and their families are gone, and they're devastated.
Although I doubt it, because one of the creatures, I mean, he's introduced by eating David's hat. That's like his thing.
Yeah,
he eats his hat, and then there's this thing that looks like a loogie that has a cold. And then we meet the Puck Martin, who looks like a little bat, and he's like super cute, but like, I mean, that's the extent of the character.
Yeah. So he just says, "Why me? Why'd you take me?" And he's like, "Why not you?" It's the
screenwriter going, "Don't ask, just do cool stuff."
Yeah, just do cool stuff. And so I think the thing is that the aliens were puzzled by is why we only use 10% of our brain. So they basically filled up David's brain with all the star charts. And then they said that it leaked, which I don't know what that means. Does he have some brain hemorrhage or something that they had to fix? Who knows? So then Max crashes into an electric pole and loses all of his star charts, so he can't go back to his planet. And that's why he needs David.
Again,
and
right.
That took me, you guys, like 30 years to figure out.
It's a messy bit of, I mean, it's just like whatever. Make the alien miss the kid. Like, come back. You are fun. Like, just make it easier. It's a lot more complicated than it needs to be. Yeah, like
star charts and all this stuff. And then he gets the star charts out of David's head. It takes like 2 seconds. And
yeah, that's the thing. That should be a bigger obstacle to overcome. And the same thing, we'll get to it, but like there's a bit of time travel that happens later, and it's too dangerous, and they wind up doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of stuff in this movie. It just it's for the convenience of the story. It doesn't really make not only does it not make any sense, but it's clearly like, okay, like we need this to make this happen, as opposed to something that feels natural to the plot.
Right. So they basically are flying around, and
NASA's all kinds of adventures.
Yeah, NASA's trying to get to them, and thing I noticed about the NASA guy, who I keep forgetting.
It's okay, Howard Hessman from Head of the Class.
he keeps giving all these commands like, "Don't let them leave and stop them."
Stop them. Yeah. How? With a helicopter.
I know. And the guy's like, "Stop them? I can't even see them." I mean, they were flying way faster in an alien spaceship. So it's a lot of just, "Oh no, kind of moment.
Yeah, and I got to say, like, it's all great. I mean, the special effects look fantastic. The ship has, this silvery, it has this way of reflecting surfaces, and it's really beautifully done. The flying footage in this movie is fantastic. Next to the Superman movies of this era, I've always loved the flying scenes of this movie. They're great.
Yeah, nothing looks fake or...
Whatever. If you really look at it, there's a couple shots, but for a movie that has very little CGI, and CGI in its infancy, like Tron level CGI.
That's probably CGI is the opening and closing of the door, right?
Yeah. The open close of the door. There's a few scenes of the ship in the distance where you can kind of tell it's a matte painting, but still, it looks really good. The effects hold up really good. This whole scene, all this stuff is fun, especially when, of course, the Maximilian's voice goes up a few octaves, and we realize, it's been Pee Wee Herman this whole time. It's Paul Rubens, uncredited as Paul Mall, doing the voice of Maximilian.
Yeah, Paul Mall. When I saw the credits, I was so confused.
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't. Rubens? Yeah, it's Paul Rubens. I don't know why he didn't want to take credit for it, but yeah, it's him. And he wound up working with Disney after this. He was a voice on Star Tours for years.
That's it?
That's it, Davy.
Davy?
If you want to learn to swim,
You've got to jump in the water. Don't forget to feed Bruiser. 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
Whoa! This can't be happening. I think I've gotten some stuff out of your head that has nothing to do with navigating this ship.
You sound just like a human.
No! That dumb dog will never learn to catch a
Frisbee, you are an inferior species, you dumb dork.
Butt face?
Scuzz bucket.
Hey, well, if you're so perfect, what are you still doing here?
I told you, I blew a fuse when I totaled out that electrical tower. I was checking out some daisies.
Crashed while looking at flowers?
Ha!
Sounds like you're the inferior species.
I'll show you who's inferior. Heads up!
Hey, take it easy.
Well, excuse me.
Yeah, I don't know why he wasn't credited. Maybe people thought if we have him in the credits, he's the biggest name in this movie. We can't have Pee Wee Herman in Flight of the Navigator because he's the biggest star in this thing by far.
So yeah, that voice, the ha-ha voice comes out when the star charts are taken from his brain. So he basically downloads all this, pop culture references.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is, a year before, there was a movie called Explorers, which I love, with River Phoenix and Ethan Hawke. It's a similar idea where you have an alien race that absorbs television, and they're kind of talking to these kids in a way that's reflecting of all the things on TV. And it whatever, it works. It allows for a lot of very lowbrow juvenile humor. It's fine, but again, this film begins as this bleak child's nightmare, and by the second act of the movie, it's wee spaceship, and that's fine. That's fine, because if that part of the film wasn't well done, then it would just be all for naught. But it's, again, as a special effects film and as a comedy, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I think the ET reference you're talking about is, so David. They have star charts of galaxies that have not been discovered yet, but they don't know how to get back to Fort Lauderdale.
They don't have a map of the United States. It's so dumb, but whatever.
So they stop in Texas.
At a tourist trap.
Yeah, at a tourist trap, at a gas station.
It's a good bit of satire, yeah.
Yeah.
And the guy running it, looks like one of the guys from Deliverance. Is this big dude with overalls, slack-jawed, and
his shirt is too small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And David's like, can I borrow some change? And
I love it. He gives him some quarters. The kid does not stop looking at the alien because he just saw the thing land.
Yeah.
And then I gotta say, a nice bit of satire. This really tacky tourism a van of tourists.
It's just a family.
It's the family of tourists. They come up and they don't realize that the alien is not this thing that was concocted for the tourist trap. It's actual.
Wow, how long did it take you to put that together?
Yeah, it's good stuff. And he's telling the kids, don't play with that. We don't know if those things are insured. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
Well, so David calls his brother and he says, "Hey, I'm coming home. Just make sure it's going to be dark. Make sure I can see you.
Yeah, give me a signal.
Give me a signal."
Because I don't really know my way around Florida.
He buys some candy. He ends up.
Well, hold on. This is the detail you pointed out, which I thought was great. Where the brother's like, "Don't worry. If I gotta set house to the fire, I will." And we're like, "Okay."
Set fire to the house.
That set fire to the house. Yeah, which is a kind of but at the same time, you're thinking, is he gonna do it? Because that's. How resourceful is this teen boy in 1986?
Who knows? But then, so the guy is staring at him, and Max pops his head out, And he totally makes this like really mean fat joke.
Yeah, it's again, not only is this movie full of slurs and profanity, but fat shaming in 1986, because that's what you did in 1986, I guess.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So then David gets in the spaceship. He's like, "Bye, thanks." They fly off.
And the redneck who runs the place goes, "He wanted a phone home."
It's just
like, okay, cute,
okay,
Disney.
Okay. Anyways, so the rest of the movie is just David trying to find Fort Lauderdale, basically, and
it's engaging. It's engaging enough that the interplay. I got to say that this actor Joey Kramer, I think, does a fine job. It's a very good child performance. He more than carries the film. He's very engaging and plucky, and he's up to all the emotional demands. Because most of the movie is him having a back and forth with this puppet, lots of puppets for that matter, and he's very good at it. It's not one of the great child performances, but he's more than up to this movie. I know you're not a fan of David Mendenhall, the star of Over the Top. This is a much better performance than that.
I think this guy could have played the son in Over the Top much better.
Well, the kid in Over the Top does a decent job, and his co-star is Stallone, and the kid in this movie his co-stars are, rod puppets and, little animatronics, and he's doing a much better job. Yeah, he does a great job. And the cringy, corny part of the movie, which I thought was awesome as when I was a kid, is when the kid gets Maximilian to play the Beach Boys. So he's flying around, singing along to Beach Boys music, whatever. It's cheese, but hey, at least it's the Beach Boys and it's not, Twisted Sister. The movie threatens us with Twisted Sister. Really does not pay off with Twisted Sister. Although, it would have been fun to, have him fly around to we're not going to take it anymore.
Okay, so they finally get to Fort Lauderdale, and he's like, "Where's the signal?" And his brother sets off fireworks.
So that
disappointingly
does not burn down the house.
Does not set the house on fire. So
it's like, how dark is this movie going to get? Oh, not at all.
Yeah. And so I think David just thinks he's going to hop off this spacecraft and just go back and live with his family.
Bye, thanks, Max.
Yeah, and NASA's not going to come around again.
I wonder whatever happened to that kid.
But they find out, that Sarah Jessica Parker's character has talked to the family, and they're...
Ooh, can we pause for a sec? There's not literally. There's a moment we almost forgot where they think they're going to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and it's Tokyo, Japan, and the movie manages to squeeze in some really unfortunate... Some Asian stereotypes of Asian people apparently only have cameras in these movies because it's the 80s.
Yeah. So that's
anyway,
the one thing about
another thing about this movie that does not hold up. But
they
whatever.
They use the word retarded. They say
things, do. Yeah.
They say things multiple times. I think yesterday I said, "Oh, canceled again," because it's.
Yeah. Next time I watch this with B, I think I'll have the audio on mute during a few scenes. But
yeah. So David gets off the spacecraft and NASA's there, and they're like, we have to keep doing our experiments on you, and he's like, leave me alone. And he's like, I just want to be with my family. And I think at that moment he just says, you know what, forget it, I'm going back in time. Max can do this. I don't care if my brain is fried. I can't live here in this alternate reality.
It's a weird decision to make. It doesn't quite hold up to me. He makes it home. His parents and his brother are right there, but it's like I'd rather die than live in any world where I can be again with my family. I don't know if that really holds up all that well. And plus, he's got Sarah Jessica Parker waiting for him, so it's like he doesn't have it all bad.
Well, but I think he's like, they're gonna want to take me back to, their.
Yeah, he's going to be
lab.
He's going to be like Elliot at the end of E.T. He's going to have all those things.
Whereas if he goes back in time, then this version of history never happened.
But at this point, it's been established twice that if you go back in time, you'll be vaporized. It's a disaster. You're going to die. The odds are completely against you.
Right.
Yeah, and of course, and then he does it. And
then he gets in there.
No big deal.
Yeah, and Max is like, are you sure? And then when he goes back in time, I don't know what, there's some lightning bolts and that's it.
It's, and I guess visually striking, really cool that you're traveling through the time dimension. But here's the thing, folks. If you're going to make the stakes that high, this movie should have had the guts to have David go back.
And die. No, just kidding.
Wow.
No.
Much darker. No, I was gonna say like no, he has amnesia.
Oh.
He just wakes up in the woods and he doesn't know which way is up.
Yeah.
Go that far.
Okay,
But in this case, it's like nothing.
He wakes
nothing.
up. He remembers.
It's like, oh well, and just kind of brushes himself off.
Yeah,
and
he remembers everything. He has the little like Puck Marin with him.
Yes.
That, like his new little pet.
Yes.
Because it's established that his planet
Yeah,
was
we'll
vaporized.
get to the Puck Marin in a second. But
No,
yeah,
we don't need to get to it. That's all there is to it. It doesn't even matter.
Well, he takes out the Puck Marin and shows his little brother, and he's like, "Shh, don't tell mom." The Puck Marin's like, and it's ridiculous because like, okay, he has this alien species on Earth that'll probably like, I mean, we don't know if this thing is carrying,
Well, that's true.
diseases
Maybe it starts the next
thing
pandemic.
hungers on human flesh. We don't know. It's just he's adorable, so it's like, oh, little Puck Marin's like,
It's a gremlin.
Yeah, we don't know.
He feeds him after midnight.
But anyway, to your point, yeah. So I mean, he just gets up, brushes himself off, runs to the house, and now they're all in the boat. Like, David, it's 4th of July, and they got sparklers, and there's a weird bit of dialogue where the dad's like, don't put that towards the dog.
Yeah, the sparklers. I know.
Yeah,
So,
like
but David, he looks at
terrible
his mom. He's like, "I love you, mom," and the mom's like, "Oh," and then he looks at his brother. He's like, "I love you," and the parents are like, "What?
What is wrong with this child?
What is happening?" And then you see Max light up the sky and like a shooting star, and
it flies off, and then once again the Alan Silvestri music kicks in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a happy ending, and I looking at it, I think did Disney look at Back to the Future and say like we got to do our version of Back to the Future, because that's, I mean, even though this isn't about the 50s, it is about barely about the culture gap between the 70s and the 80s. It barely touches on that. The clothes are different. MTV is a thing, and that's really it. Otherwise, like, it's,
8 years. Like, why did they pick 8 years?
well, I mean, yeah. Well, obviously, it would have been more expensive too. It'd be more expensive to go back further, and also the MTV video that they show is an obscure band. It's not like they're showing like Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh, okay.
It's these guys who are known because their video is in this movie. It's not like showing.
Yeah, probably 8 years was long enough to traumatize the parents, just enough to have them not die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, I love this movie. I really do. I think it's fun. I think watching it now as a parent, we saw some things we thought, oh, that's a little questionable.
It's like a lot of 80s movies that are PG, that were family based. They're just, I just remember being a kid and saying all sorts of inappropriate things when my parents were not around. Thankfully, I'm not that person anymore. But at the same time, I do recognize just like, not only have we progressed as a society and there's things that we just don't say, but it is odd that these movies have these elements. Like, it's one thing for kids to smoke in a movie, and I know that's like a major taboo, but I mean, I get that. When kids are alone, they smoke. But for this movie to be, because this is the Disney company, for them to be very calculated about what this film is, and to have these moments that should have like set off some red flags, because I mean, was maybe the profanity was in there because it's like we needed to be PG. This can't be rated G. Is that why the profanity is in there? Because they needed something to make it grittier,
A little edgier.
Yeah, I don't know, but I do think this movie pulls its punches in the third act. I do think that for all the stuff in the first act of the movie, which I wouldn't call it dark, but it's creepy, and in a way that's really accessible and interesting. And for kids, I imagine it's especially. I mean, what a creepy idea to go to your home and suddenly years have passed. There's people living in your home.
Yeah.
That weird reveal where David runs into his house, runs upstairs, goes up to his room, and not only is there a man in a robe sitting on his bed, but he's like listening to like some weird like some really bad like Copacabana music. It's great because it's creepy. It's everyone's worst fear, this sense of like displacement and my family is gone. And I don't think the movie. It does feel like two very different films.
Well, Disney loves to get rid of parents and put kids on, terrifying journeys.
Yeah, and the reason why, I mean, it's the most traumatic thing a child could have to deal with, arguably. So that's why, so many movies ranging from Bambi to The Good Dinosaur are about this very thing. And obviously, I mean, I want this movie to have a happy ending. I mean, I like this kid, I like this family. I want this movie to end happily. And the ending to this movie isn't false, it's just a little too easy, I think.
Okay, so how would you change it? Oh, you'd give him amnesia?
Yeah, I would want him to wake up with amnesia. I want there to be some stakes. It's not that he needs to suffer. It's not that the movie needs a cruel ending. But, I mean, if you're going to establish that going back in time will probably result in death or vaporization, at least have it that he gets back and he doesn't know quite who he is. So maybe he becomes, I don't know, like maybe the family's like, David, why don't you remember us? And, and I don't know. I think the ending could have been dealt with a little bit better. It feels way too Disney, especially with the ship flying overhead and, "Hi, bye, Davy," It's too easy. Like, at least, like, if this is science fiction, at least, like, allow some of the darker ideas from the first act to get in there. It can't all be like, fireworks and rainbows and puck marins.
I disagree. I think the ending's perfect. Well, you know what? I think it kind of shows, to be grateful for what you have, and that his family and his brother, they're not as bad as he was thinking that they were. And he kind of had this negative, attitude about them and life and everything. And this kind of showed him that he really does have it all, So
here's another thing I thought about, though, watching it the other day. This alternate world, because what happens, of course, is that he goes back in time, and then everything that we just saw erased, essentially, right? And he's the only one that's aware of that. But the thing is, this alternate world that we were, which is the second half of the movie, where his parents have been suffering for 8 years and raising the other brother alone for 8 years. And, Sarah Jessica Parker has had her mind rotting with MTV for 8 years. Like, that all goes away. And, like, how awful, because I want that family to be rewarded in some way, because instead it's just like it all vanishes.
They're rewarded. They don't have to suffer.
Like, kid, get off the spaceship and live a few years in this world, because like they've been waiting for you for so long.
Yeah, but when he goes back, that's all gone. They never had to suffer.
I don't know. I think that's a rotten way to treat those characters, honestly. Just to have all that just vanish and disappear like that.
Yeah, he erased their suffering.
And there's no reward to it. It's like, okay, like David, maybe he says, "Hey, Dad, I think you should invest in this thing called MTV." Wink, wink.
He should have got the almanac.
"Hey, Dad, there's this band called Twisted Sister. We need to buy Twisted Sister t-shirts and start selling them, if you know what I mean."
Yeah, he gets the almanac and they start
"Dad, I
betting
think Ronald
on
Reagan
races.
might become president in the 80s. I'm just saying. I know he's an actor, but I think we can go to Vegas with that."
Well, okay. The ending of the movie, we only with the parents for like 3 minutes.
I know, like at least do something. It just doesn't do enough with this, because I agree with you. The 78, 86 time difference, like it just doesn't do enough with it. And I don't know that Disney even knew what to do with it, because again, this is at a time when the company didn't really have much of an identity. I mean, The Great Mouse Detective came out at the same time as this movie, and I love that film, and I think it was like kind of the start of the return. But this is the company coming off years of like Condor Man and The Black Cauldron and The Watcher in the Woods. So yeah, I just feel like the ending should have been, the whole second and third act of the movie should have been a lot stronger.
Okay, well.
So 3 stars for me.
Wow. That's still good though.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's even a great movie at times, but yeah. I do think it's not quite.
So watch it with your kids and mute the bad words.
When the spaceship is about to leave and Howard Hesseman is running down the stairs and he's going, "Mother," hit the mute button. You know what, Howard Hesseman, learn from Joe Pesci. If Joe Pesci, the king of the F word, can go Raja Fraja Fraja in Home Alone, then why couldn't Howard Hesseman
well, he's not as good of an actor as Joe Pesci.
This is true.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I've learned something.
That concludes our take on Flight of the Navigator.